Welcome to the channel. Today we will explore a shocking secret of the British royal family, a truth that has been hidden for 30 years, and only now at the age of 43 Prince William has discovered. According to a close source, after learning what King Charles had kept secret for decades, William was completely calm. This is not only a personal shock, but also a step that can change the foundation of the monarchy. In the end, what makes a son a successor to the throne face such a dangerous choice? Let's delve into this painful and secret story. Do you think the British royal family could keep a secret for 30 years? If you believe it, comment 1. If you think it's impossible, leave 0. Don't forget to enjoy the video and leave a sub to support the channel. I will update more shocking royal secrets. One quiet afternoon, Prince William accidentally discovered an old letter while going through the royal archives. It was a letter from Rosalia to King Charles, written shortly after Princess Diana's death. The content of the letter was an instruction to keep her last wishes secret. William was stunned to learn of the existence of his mother's diaries and tapes, something he had not known about for more than 30 years. The biggest shock was the truth did not come from the media or enemies, but from his own father. Why did Charles bury Diana's last words? And what made him so afraid that he had to cover up the truth? In the final months of her life, Diana recorded her emotions in diaries and cassette tapes, private messages to William and Harry. They contained pain apologies and warnings. Her voice, weak but sincere, echoed from the past, shaking William. He had thought he knew everything about his mother's death, but now he knew a part of the truth that had been hidden for too long. That moment left him with a difficult choice: continue to keep silent to protect the royal family, or bravely speak up to give Diana a final say. William faced his father in a closed-door meeting. The atmosphere was heavy as a storm cloud. He came not as an heir, but as a wounded son. "Why don't you trust me enough to tell you this?" he asked. There was no anger, no drama, just raw pain. Charles was reportedly taken aback by his son's candor, and he fell silent, seemingly moved on the verge of tears. Then he gave an answer that hurt William even more. "I just wanted to protect you from your mother's pain." But the answer, meant to be comforting, only made things worse. For William, this wasn't protection. It was control, a mistake that deprived him of his last chance to hear his mother's final words. The tense conversation quickly escalated into a confrontation. Voices rose, emotions spilled. William reportedly pressed, "Who else was involved in that decision?" "Just you." Charles said vaguely, "It's complicated." The room shook according to those close to him, not from the noise, but from all the things that had gone unsaid for decades. One royal aide called the moment a breaking point that had been brewing for years. Because this wasn't just about tapes or secret letters, it was about pain that had never been shared. William left the meeting, eyes red and fists clenched, not saying a word to anyone, not even Kate. That night, he took the diary and the tapes to his private study, where he stayed until dawn. The confrontation had broken something not just between him and Charles, but within William himself. The man who had stood firm as a model prince now realized that the institution he had always defended had tried to protect him from the very thing he needed most: his mother's voice. And the consequences were more than just emotional, they were transformative. For years, William believed he had done everything right. He had done his duty. He had protected the regime, he had preserved his mother's memory. But after the truth came to light, the tapes, the diaries, the betrayal, something inside him broke. Close friends say William became quiet, his public smile fading behind palace walls. He became absorbed in his own thoughts, telling Kate, "I feel like I've lost my mother all over again." The pain became vivid, as if the funeral had just happened. But this time it was accompanied by anger. William begins to ask, what is Charles really hiding, and why is he so afraid of it? As he digs deeper into the closed files, the picture of the past becomes clearer and more painful than he could have imagined. What he finds is not just information, but the naked truth. Diana speaks with painful honesty about life in the palace, about betrayal, loneliness, and the breakdown of her marriage to Charles. She holds nothing back, not even the moment she realizes Charles has never really left Camilla. She fears for her son's emotional future in a system that has never protected her. For Charles, reading those words would have been disturbing enough, but hearing them in Diana's own voice, preserved forever, would have been a ticking time bomb. So according to insiders, he made the decision not as a mourning ex-husband, but as a future king. He ordered that the tapes, the diary, and the part of Diana's will that related to them be kept secret. The reason given was that their release would further damage the royal family's image. At the time, Charles was under fire while Diana was almost revered as a saint. But in his effort to save the royal family from collapse, Charles has sacrificed something priceless: his son's truth, his healing, and his right to hear his mother's final words. Some believe that Charles feared the tapes would further alienate William and Harry, that Diana's honest words would turn them away from everything he stood for. Ironically, by keeping those words hidden for 30 years, he may have made that happen. Now William is faced with a choice: keep silent, as tradition dictates, or let the world hear his mother's words. For William, the question is no longer what happened, but what now? When he opens Diana's diary, it is not just a piece of paper. It is a box of memories. Her mother's handwriting seems to reach out from the other side of the world. Diana writes not just about public life, but also about her fear of being isolated, misunderstood, and ultimately rejected. She writes about William and Harry, about their boundless love, and the fear that the royal system will swallow them up. William once comforted his mother as a child, saying, "Don't cry, Mummy. I will be your knight." Reading those words decades later broke William. A palace aide said he spent hours in his room with the diary, then simply told Kate, "It was like hearing my mother's voice after all these years." The diary not only brought back memories, it brought clarity. Diana had always wanted her children to know the truth, not the one written in history books or press releases, but her own truth. And now that William had it, what would happen next? The palace began to panic because they knew this was no longer a family secret. As soon as news broke that William had found the tapes and diaries, the corridors of Buckingham fell silent. Then panic. Emergency meetings were called, the press team alerted. The orders were clear control, the flow of information, call it private, confirm, nothing, deny nothing. But behind the scenes there was fear. They feared that what Diana had said would leak, that her emotional tone would overshadow years of work to rebuild the royal image. Some even suggested moving the entire archive elsewhere, but William refused. For him, this was not a relic. It was his mother's last words, and he would not let anyone erase her again. As the palace scrambled to figure out how to respond, something else began to emerge. Something they had not prepared for. Someone else had suspected it all along: Harry. As William began to piece together the truth, he could not help but wonder, did Harry know? For years, Harry had hinted at things that had never been told, had said that the royal family was more interested in control than healing. Now, William began to think perhaps his brother had always felt this way. William, overwhelmed with emotion, contacted Harry for the first time in months, the source said. The call was brief, but ended with the words, "I have something my mother left me. I need to share it with you." The possibility that Diana could reconnect her two sons after years of separation is both sad and hopeful. While the royal family fears the truth being revealed, the two sons may have the very thing that could bring them back together, Diana's voice. But not everyone in the royal family is ready for that truth to be revealed, especially one Camilla. One of the most shocking parts of the tapes is Diana's candid thoughts about Camilla. According to sources, Diana spoke brutally and honestly. She described how Charles's affair haunted her marriage. She felt betrayed, not just as a wife, but as a mother trying to protect her children from scandal. If you were Prince William and found out your father had been hiding a secret for 30 years, would you speak up or keep quiet? Comment number 2. If you would speak up, number 5. If you chose to stay silent to protect your family. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next shocking stories from the British royal family. There were 3 of us in the marriage, so it was a bit crowded, she once said. An iconic quote from the Panorama interview that many believe says it all. But the tapes go further. Diana was reportedly concerned that Camilla would end up reshaping the royal family in her own image. She worried that her memory would be erased to make way for the woman the public had rejected, and perhaps Diana was right. For since Charles's coronation and Camilla's ascension to the throne, Diana's name has been steadily disappearing from speeches, official portraits, and royal ceremonies. For William, this is deeply personal. Not only has his mother's final message been kept secret, but the woman who caused her the most pain may have benefited from her silence. Camilla's role in the royal family has long been a matter of debate, but now with Diana's words emerging from the shadows, things could change forever. And through it all, there was one person who stood by William. That person was Kate. When the storm of emotions engulfed William, Kate Middleton was there not just as a wife, but as a shield. She was his silent anchor, keeping him grounded as royal politics pulled him in every direction. And when William faced the deepest betrayal of his life, Kate was the first person he turned to. Sources say Kate sat with him for hours as he read Diana's diaries and listened to the tapes. She didn't say much. She didn't need to. Her presence was enough. She held his hand, made him tea, and quietly reminded him that he wasn't alone. But behind that calmness was a quiet anger. Kate was said to have believed the tapes should have been given to William years ago. She encouraged him to face the truth, not to shock, but to heal. But that support came at a cost. The tension between Kate and Camilla, once low-key, is now palpable. One source recalls a public appearance where Camilla said something and Kate just smiled and looked away. It was so cold, the insider said. You could feel the division. Now with Diana's voice alive and the family divided on both sides of history, Kate and William face a choice. Keep quiet to protect tradition, or speak up and risk it all. The palace may have tried to keep the secret under wraps, but as the rumors of the letters and tapes spread, the public began to boil over. It started with a small leak. A source close to the press told the press that William had discovered hidden parts of Diana's will. Then came details of the diaries, the recordings, the emotional confrontation with Charles. And finally, the spark. Diana's voice was back. Social media exploded with the phrase, "Let Diana speak." People demanded transparency. Diana's fans, from generations old to new, flooded social media with photos, quotes, and memories of a woman they believed had been wronged. But this time, the outrage wasn't just directed at the press or past scandals, it was directed at the palace itself. Articles began to appear asking, was Charles trying to protect the royal family or himself? Was Camilla's rise built on the silence of another woman's truth? And the most painful part, William lived 30 years in the dark while someone knew the truth all that time. Public support for Prince William has surged, with many literally calling him a mama's boy. Royal experts say the royal silence only fuels suspicion. With each day that passes without a word from the palace, the specter of Diana becomes more palpable. And now, with millions calling for the tapes and the entire diary to be released, William finds himself at a crossroads. The institution he was born to lead is the one that prevented him from hearing his mother's final words. But is he willing to risk it all to honor her? Inside the palace, the mood has changed. Not just because of the tapes or the diaries, but because William is no longer grieving in silence. He is thinking, planning, and according to royal aides, seriously considering his next move. For months, William has spoken publicly about transparency, accountability, and emotional honesty, especially when it comes to raising his children. But now those words take on a whole new meaning. The future king is not just considering the throne, but himself. Some sources say he is considering releasing parts of the tapes or diaries, not to embarrass his father, but to finally get Diana to speak in her own words. Others say William wants to share them privately with Harry first, as a quiet act of reconciliation before a public storm. Either way, tensions are inevitable. Senior members of the royal family worry that the release could create a generational divide between those clinging to the past and those seeking to reshape the royal future. But for William, perhaps this is no longer about politics. This is about legacy, his mother's legacy. She was silenced. Will he let that happen again? As the public rallies behind him and the royal family prepares for a shakeup, all eyes are on the man who was the boy who walked behind Diana's coffin. He is no longer behind, he is leading. And what happens next could change everything. "30 years after her death, Princess Diana is once again the most powerful voice in the royal family. Her words, once locked in silence, now echo through halls she once distrusted. In the midst of it all, Prince William, the boy she loved most, is now the man who must decide whether her mother's truth will be heard. The royal family has survived scandal, divorce, death, and exile, but this is different. This is not an image crisis or a fleeting media shock. This is an internal confrontation, deep, quiet, and full of conflict. William is no longer the prince who obediently obeys the court, but a son facing a crossroads, continue to keep silent to protect the institution that stifled the voice of his mother, Princess Diana, or have the courage to speak up, accepting to shake the palace with truths that have been buried for decades. Deep down, he knows that what his mother has always wanted is not a settlement, but justice, for herself, for her son, and for the future of the royal family. Meanwhile, King Charles became increasingly isolated. He was caught between the pain of the past and the emerging truth. The silent walls of the palace were no longer thick enough to keep the truth from leaking out. William knew this was perhaps the hardest decision of his life, not just because it affected the throne, but because it touched the very roots of honor, family, and legacy. And so he chose to speak up, not to avenge, but to clear, not to break, but to heal. And so, after more than 30 years, the truth has finally been revealed, leaving Prince William with a deep pain and a difficult choice to continue to stay silent or to bravely speak up like his mother did. Whatever the decision, this is certainly a major turning point for the entire royal family. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel to update the next developments.